and just get going. It's right at 7. So good morning. We're so excited to already be on day 4. That's crazy. This is going by so fast. And I know today is going to be awesome. We're going to move and groove and talk about motherhood ergonomics with Hillary. And I know that you're going to just be mind blown like I was when I talked to her every time. So I'll let Hillary take it from here.
All right, good morning. Yes, so this is a topic that Kirsten brought to me, and I was like mind blown, like, how did I not think of that? Like, this is something I talk a lot about with clients, but just kind of weave it in, but never made it like one congruent thing. So it was really great to put this all together. And as I was finishing up the final things this week, I was like, oh, this is really fun and awesome. So before we dive into, we're going to start with actually a body awareness exercise. And then we're going to move into something I have done with my clients for probably the last like 5 to 6 years, is encouraging them to establish a morning movement routine. And we're gonna go through one together. It's nothing specific. It's a very organic, just get your body flowing, moving, feel good kind of thing. And then we're gonna go through some pictures that demonstrate good and bad ergonomics and positioning, and we're going to talk about like how do you achieve that. So as I think I'm just going to stop there and kind of jump into our body awareness, and then we'll go from there. So I want everyone to just kind of sit comfortably. This is something that is great done in the morning. It's kind of a check-in for your body. But anytime before, especially as you're easing back into more movement postpartum, I think this is really important because a lot has changed in your body. And it's key to start really just tuning in. And that is one of the best exercises you can do right away after giving birth. It's just reconnecting with your body. And Kirsten does a lot of exercises more mind-based. And this is similar, and then we're going to dive actually into your body. But I totally agree that that's a great progression from like week 0, week 1, week 2 kind of thing, is just each day going into your breath and into your body and just being present with it. No judgment, just observation of what's going on, and then leading from there. Okay, so I'm going to take you through each area of your body that moms often have complaints about. So we're not going to cover the whole body. Of course, the mom could have a complaint about some other area I don't touch, but these are the key areas, and it's generally all in the midline. So closing your eyes, sitting comfortably. I want you to take a few deep breaths in. And just like we did on Tuesday, pay attention to your breath. And as you inhale, feeling that your ribs are expanding. Ideally, they're expanding like an opening umbrella in a 360 degree. And as you exhale, feeling them coming in, and your abdomen and pelvic floor having some increased tension. Not contraction, but just a little more pressure. Inhaling, opening up, and exhaling, coming in. With your next inhale, I want you to breathe in calm, relaxation, awareness, attention. And as you exhale, I want you to breathe out tension, stress, anxiety, worry. And one more time, in and out. Okay, let's start with your jaw. Just start observing your jaw. Again, not trying to change anything, but just observing what it's doing, how it feels. And then I want you to keep your lips together. Keep your teeth apart gently. Drop your tongue to the bottom of your mouth and allow your throat to be open. When you take those 4 steps of closing your mouth, and so you're breathing through your nose, if you can't breathe through your nose, don't worry about it. Keep your mouth open. Part your teeth, drop your tongue, and open your throat. You should have feel a decreased tension in your jaw. This is something that you can return to throughout the day when you start to feel stress, worry, anxiety. Releasing it from your jaw, place it likes to stay. Now drifting down from your relaxed jaw to your neck, and gentle movements are fine here. You don't have to be completely still, and just observing, how does my neck feel today? Does it feel tight? Does it feel stiff? Maybe turning your head a little side to side, up and down. Or does it feel pretty good? And just take note. Again, if you find something that feels yucky or painful, just sit with it. Take a deep breath in, observing it, feeling it, and then with that exhale, trying to release it, blowing that tension, that pain, that pressure away. Moving down to your shoulders, observing for a moment, for a couple of breaths. Do little wiggles. Sometimes it helps, those little movements can help connect our mind and body better. When we're static and still, if we're disconnected from that area, it can be hard to observe anything. But then when you move it, you're like, oh, hello, and you start to feel more. Taking a deep breath in, observing that sensation, those sensations, and then with your exhale, releasing any negative sensations away. Coming to your chest, I want you to observe for a few breaths what happens with your inhale. When you breathe in, does it feel like air is flowing in easily, or is it stiff and restricted and tight? And with your exhale, you're trying to release out any of that tension. It can be really helpful to do a nice long exhale for as long as you can. Keep going. Exhale, 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 and a beautiful big inhale. And that sometimes can help open up that chest and get those lungs feeling like they're doing more. And then down through your shoulder blades and your mid back, a really common place for moms to have tension and tightness and pain. Breathing in and then releasing that tension, letting it float away, relax, let go. And one more breath, breathing into your mid back and your shoulder blade area. And exhale, releasing that tension. Now going down to your hips. So kind of shifting side to side or doing a little rolling of your hip on your seat. The hips, like the jaw, are another place that we hold a lot of tension and stress, anxiety, worry, all that emotional stuff we carry with us. Just observe. Loves to hide in the hips, and it can be hard to find. But releasing, letting go, all that you find or don't find with your exhale. And exhaling it away. And then coming to your pelvic floor, place where often women are carrying tension without even knowing it. So just observing. And again, with that exhale, we're not doing any Kegels or tension. With your exhale, I want you to let it float away. Inhaling, observing, exhaling, consciously asking your body to release and let go and be free. And then taking one more Couple more breaths. Just observing your hands and your feet, wiggling those fingers and toes, kind of asking them to wake up. And then coming back into the space, gently opening your eyes. All right. So that was a simple little body scan, breath, body awareness, relaxation. You can do it a lot shorter than that. You can just kind of go boop, 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 with some breaths. It does not have to take a long time. But I always encourage my moms who are returning to movement and returning to being more active after that very, hopefully, very sedentary and restful period just after birth, that they start doing some sort of mind body connection, which is very gentle movement. So this is way more gentle than what we're going to do now, where I am going to ask you if you're comfortable to turn on your camera, and we're going to be doing a morning movement routine. So this is the way I describe this. This is something that is for just tuning into your body and finding what feels good. Okay, there's no right or wrong way to do it, other than the one rule I have is that you want to make sure you hit all the joints in your body. So at some point in time, you might be rolling your neck and your shoulders and your elbows and your hands. And I find that we're going to do it without music today because I'm teaching you, but I think music can be good. And music, whatever you're drawn to, can kind of inform you how you're feeling. Because I am typically drawn to something very soothing and relaxing, like a classical or meditation type thing. And I just want to move very slowly. And that's because you'll probably notice when I do it without music, I get like really like busy and crazy, and that's fine. But that's my nature, that I'm going to move around and just not like move quickly. And I want to filter in through this conscious awareness movement routine to slow down. Now, if you're someone who's having trouble getting going, or you just love that dancing around, you want to honor it and live it, you might pick something like, who knows, I don't know, some K-pop. So if you're comfortable turning on your camera, we're going to all stand up and we're going to start moving. So I might have to do a few adjustments. I can lift my legs up by late. I don't like dancing around with my head cut off. Okay. So can you hear me okay? Because I am kind of far. Okay. So always starting, I have like this weird thing on my screen. Sorry. Okay. So always starting just arms up, hips rolling, just doing some big movements that feel good. Doesn't really matter what it is. Opening. All right. And once I've done a few, I'm lifting my legs up, kind of pulling my knees in. I'm not being too worried about any posture or alignment that we're going to talk about in a little bit. I'm just moving. So I'm going to start rolling my neck. I like going head to toe. So I'm getting my neck rolling and going the other way. And I keep kind of moving and swaying gently as it feels good in the rest of my body, looking up and down, looking over my shoulders. All right, now getting my shoulders moving, shoulder rolls, reaching open, out, open, out. My elbows are moving with this. Now I'm going to go to my hands. I always like stretching out. Our mommy wrists can get so sore. It's a nice, gentle wrist movements in the morning, opening, closing those fingers. So we've kind of gotten our arms and our neck, and now it's the spine. So I'm going to bend and touch my toes and stand up and stretch back and do it one more time. Down to my bending. So remembering that your spine bends forward and back, but it goes to the side. Some stretching, reaching, opening those ribs and reaching. And then it also twists. So this is where some days I'll do something more flowy like this and then my arms swaying. Or sometimes I'll just do a looking over And looking over, both are twists. All right, now my hips. I like to do these hip circles and I'm losing my balance. And that's okay. It's good to laugh and just have fun. And then I'm going to go backwards and bring it forwards. Backwards and bring it forwards. I'll show you this way. Let me lower my camera a little. Hip movement is really great. Going back and around. You get that nice hip extension. All right, and then just I'm swinging my knee like this. Boop, 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 boop. Get that knee going. Boop, 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 boop. And circles. I don't normally hold my leg up this high. I'm trying to show you what I'm doing. So those ankle circles, getting some balance in here. Postpartum balance can be tricky. So if you need to hold something, no shame. I'm scrunching my toes and opening them. And then one more big inhale and exhaling down. Kind of shaking down here. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake at the top. And some sort of honoring your body in some way. So moving along, you're going to feel that your heart rate definitely went up a little. It's certainly not something I would recommend the week you give birth at that pace. But it is something that you absolutely can incorporate. Ooh, I'm hot, got warmed up. Incorporate within that 6-week time frame before you're seeing your physician for a release to more formal exercise, which is really the focus of this whole talk this morning, is that there's so much you can do to start build great habits from the start. You can do this before you give birth and start building those habits, or as soon as you want, pretty early postpartum, building those wonderful habits early on. And it's quick, it's easy. So if you're just doing that 3-minute body tune in, 3-minute movement somewhere in your day, that's establishing something really great for your body early on that's safe and going to really set you up for returning to more activity. Okay, so I am going to try share my screen and let's see, jump into, okay. All right, awesome. So, motherhood ergonomics. And again, all right, so we did the body awareness meditation, returning to exercise through mindful movement. That's kind of the overarching theme of this whole talk. And then mom life ergonomics. So this is just a visual of what we did. So I went through the jaw, neck, shoulders, chest. That's a big one that we often miss. Shoulder blades and kind of your mid back, your low back. I think I skipped that one. Your butt or your hips and your pelvic floor. So those are key areas that moms tend to get. The only other place I may add is wrists is another really common one. And we'll talk a little bit about wrists today. And this is your morning movement routine. So it's an organic, feel-good movement that feeds your body and soul. So you can move through your day, or you can move through your day with awareness and attention. Attention. I think intention sounds nicer, but when we are, let me go to I think this is on the next slide. Yes. So often when we're postpartum, and this is where I can tell you a little bit about my story with actually my second baby. So it wasn't my first. My first, I did pretty good still tuning into my body and taking time for myself. It was easier. I had someone here, partner, take my baby. The second one was where the challenge really arose in our family. And I was just moving through my day. I can distinctly remember many occasions where I felt aches or pains or felt myself not like trying to hold myself up, and instead just like letting my what I like your skeleton hold you up, and just knowing in my therapy brain that this is probably not good, but not having the bandwidth to do anything about it, which is totally realistic and happens to so many of us. So we have to give ourselves some grace. But I also feel like if I had heard someone like tell me what I'm going to tell you today, that I might have had a little more fire and knowledge inside me to be like, no, Hillary, you know that's not right, and it's not going to serve your body in the long run. So what ended up happening, it was particularly around, I carried my second much more in a baby carrier, and I would slap that baby carrier on and just let it hang on me, and I wouldn't use my muscles to hold myself up. And we'll go into some baby carrying later, and I would just let my abs just bleh, whatever they wanted. And I know I caused a much worse diastasis because of that inattention to my own body and posture. And so that's where I think if someone had said, hey, like, or I had that in my head, like, hey, you can do something about this, and it doesn't take much time. It does take some effort. And sometimes we're not there to put in that effort. I get that. But if I had put in that effort a little bit more, I probably would not have had to go through what I did. So, or to the same degree. So how we sit and stand through our day does impact our pelvic floor, and it impacts our core, the returning of our core, deep core strength. So I'm not talking about returning to like a flat stomach. That's irrelevant in my mind. I'm talking about returning to a core, a deep core that supports your spine and protects you from injury. Okay, so this has nothing to do with getting your abs back aesthetically. For some women, that will happen as this goes, and other women, it doesn't. Say for one, I'm that other woman. My stomach doesn't look like it did, and I don't think it ever will, but that's okay. My deep core is supporting me and keeping me healthy and protecting me from injury. At the end of the day, I believe that's what's most important. So this is another thing that I want to make sure you understand, that poor posture doesn't mean you're going to get pelvic floor problems. You could totally ignore everything I say here, and likely it's your genetics that just protect you from ever having an issue. Good posture doesn't mean you have good pelvic floor health. In fact, sometimes I picture dancers and ballerinas, like gymnasts, holding themselves up really hard. Oftentimes they're so tense that creates problems. So it's finding this kind of balance between, we can't be holding ourselves up all day perfectly, but we need to be coming back to it. And we need to know where to come back to, which is what we're going to talk about very soon. So good posture does decrease the risk of back problems, pelvic floor problems, postpartum. Poor posture does increase the risk, but it's not a direct correlation. So you can slouch your way through postpartum and possibly get away with it, and you can do everything right and still have an issue. And please unmute to speak up if you have a question at any time or you want me to repeat something. So this is a really key part of the rest of this talk, is if we don't know where neutral is, meaning midline or center, we can't fix appropriately, because when you're fixing your posture, you should be returning to neutral. But if you don't know where that is, it's hard to know if you're doing that right. We can all try, and we know what standing upright is, but there's often little things we're doing wrong. So I just need a sip of tea. Okay, so on the left here, this is me standing in a mountain posture. Obviously, I'm doing a little extra with my arms, but if just imagine like normal hanging arms, this is a good place to return to throughout the day to some degree. So the basics of it, if I really pare it down, now I think there's a handout in your workbook or in the course that kind of demonstrates this with some more cues that I'm going to tell you verbally today. So, but at the bare minimum, it's trying to align your head and ears over your shoulders, over your hips, over your knees, over your ankles. So everything's in one straight line. And then you need to take in some consideration of what your hips are doing. So I'm going to stand up and start demonstrating this. It's a little hard because you can't see my whole body. But if I go to the side, you can kind of see my head. So I'm always like, okay, it's my head, my ears. I think the ears is the easiest part, over my shoulders. The thing to watch for is often we're very forward. So I bring my head back over my shoulders. I'm like, okay, and now are my shoulders over my hips. Yeah, that feels pretty good. And then my knees are not locked, but they're not bent. They're just out of the locked position. And then over my ankles. So over the ankles is key because during pregnancy, we tend to start drifting forward because we have so much weight. And our weight really starts to go into our toes. So shifting back, you see that was a couple inches. Now my weight's over my heels. So I've seen a lot of pretty early postpartum moms who are just like, they're straight, but they're like on this angle. And I'm like, just put your weight in your heels. Okay, you don't want your toes totally floating up, but more weight should be in your heels for this. So now the hips, so we got aligned here, but our hips can do all sorts of funky things. So even though this hip bone's still in line with my shoulder, I can still be here or here, and neither of those are neutral hip alignment. Okay, so those are, when you look at that, so this is a side view. We want this bone, which is this bone, and our pubic bone in line. So you might, looking at this, and it's hard to, always a little abstract, and it's white on white, but you might think like, oh, it goes like this. This is actually not the orientation, because remember our lumbar has a curve. The orientation of our hips is here. When this bone and this bone are on the same line. Okay, and that, now look at the spine. It looks like it's going way forward. No, it's doing its natural curve. Okay, so I often will hold it like this. It's easier, but that is totally me doing this. Okay, it's way not neutral. So the way I have moms check in with that is putting your hand, one hand on your pubic bone and your hip bone, and feeling like, okay, they're level, like I'm pretty level right now. I'm on like that same plane. And now if I go back, my pubic bone is behind my sticky outy bone. And if I go forward, common, I guess it's moms do one or the other. I wouldn't say there's one a lot more common, or tucking your butt. So you kind of have no butt anymore. And you're like, where'd my butt go? It's still there. You just have tucked it. So now my pubic bone's way, you can see the difference in front of my hip bone. So here is neutral. Here is an anterior tilt. So that really big arch sway back. And here's a posterior tilt, that no butt. So finding that neutral. Okay, and then when you find that neutral helps support the natural curves of your spine, which you can see in the picture on the right is me sitting. And we have these, so our cervical spine or neck comes forward, our mid back between our shoulders goes back, and then our lumbar spine curves pretty far forward, and then we have our sacrum that kind of rounds under. Okay, so when you're aligned, those curves are as shown with that line. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so here we're going to dive into a whole series of photographs and just kind of talking about alignment. And I like to make this very real because, of course, when you're, it's actually my parents' house, pretending to wash dishes for the sake of this lecture. But this is the common, we're just kind of slouched over. Our back is very rounded. And then when we stop washing those 10 bottles, we stand up and we're like, oh, and it just hurts. Well, we haven't been preserving our natural curves. I'm not implying that you can stand up straight with, and I'm using these dots to show how I'm closer to that mountain posture. So I have my shoulders over my hips, over my knees, over my ankles, more or less. My head is tilted forward, of course, because I need to look down and watch what I'm doing. I can't wash dishes looking straight ahead. So you get as close as you can with these activities, or you're returning to this intermittently as you go through the task. And I think that's a really key and real world tip is I could try to wash dishes the whole time like this, but it's really awkward. I mean, you got to reach for things, you got to do things, you got to move. So there's going to be times where you find yourself back in that hunched over position. But when you start feeling that ping or that body being like, hey, that doesn't feel good, do you correct it? And do you go back to where you should be in an upright and aligned posture? And do you know where that posture is? Or are you just trying to make yourself straight? But you're making yourself straight and you always have this tucked butt. And so your hips are off, which is actually messing with the curves of your spine. So I'd love to hear anyone kind of chime in if you're following along and this is like connecting it, or if you have any questions. And I can't see the chat box, so maybe Kirsten can monitor that. Okay, so this is, I wanted to demonstrate dishwasher, but it was running. So here's the oven. I'm not implying that we're doing any heavy cooking early postpartum, but the common, like just lazily bending over straight legged, which puts a lot of pressure on the low back. And just, it's really hard. So if we're doing this over and over and over, that pulling up, you're putting a lot of tension on your hamstrings and your low back and can really start causing some pain. So the alternative, which is great for your returning to exercise, is doing somewhat of a squat. What level of squat? It depends on how low you need to go. But with pregnancy, our glutes kind of shut down and we lose a lot of glute strength. And squatting is one of the best ways to bring that back. So no, you're not 6 weeks or you haven't been cleared for exercise from your doctor yet, but you can squat to pick up something off the floor, certainly hopefully by 3, 4, 5 weeks postpartum, you're starting to feel comfortable enough to do that. So, instead of bending and up, we're bending our knees, getting our hips back, and we're getting a little bit of an exercise through that. If you did that for 5 of the 40 dishes in the dishwasher, that would be good. If you did it for 35 of the 40, even better. Every little bit counts, and it doesn't have to be perfect to make a difference. It really can make a huge difference. This is a chair I'm sitting on right now. It's an ergonomically designed chair. Do I look on the left like I'm sitting as I'm supposed to? No, like I'm totally slouched and goose-necked, and we all do. So the point here is there's a lot of baby equipment. They say ergonomically designed stroller, baby carrier, car seat. And I say, yay, it's ergonomically designed, but nothing is ergonomically designed to help you unless you use it in the right way. So do you know how to sit up straight? And are you strong enough to sit up straight to preserve those natural curves of your spine and have equal weight on your hips and have your feet in the right position? You may not be early postpartum. So just using an example of an ergonomically designed desk chair. So you need to return to some level of work very early. So you're at your desk and you're sitting here like this, goose-necked, like I am in this right picture. Then you're breastfeeding all day. Both of those postures create a lot of tension in the neck. So we'll do breastfeeding in a little bit. You're looking down at baby, rounded forward, and you're at your desk rounding where you're going to have pain. Everyone's a little different, but generally you're going to have pain through your neck. We all know that, like computer neck, and mid back, right in here, and potentially if your low back's a weak point, your low back. And so you do a couple of hours of work on the computer and then countless hours breastfeeding, your body is going to be sore. So I challenge it, like we're trying to work on building that strength by simply holding ourselves up straight, trying to get a good posture, checking in and trying to return to a good posture every 5 or 10 minutes that we're there. You're going to sink out of this. I can't stay here. I sink out of it and I slowly go into the gooseneck posture. And then I'm like, oh, and I come back up. And then I slowly sink out. That's fine. It's very hard to hold a perfect posture. Mountain pose in yoga is an exercise. It's not where we can stay all day. We have to move and bend. And when we do that, it disrupts the mountain posture, and getting back to it is an exercise. So kind of shifting that mindset that exercise needs to be me starting lifting weights or doing core exercises or walking is really, it can be a lot simpler of when you're standing to brush your teeth, you try to stand up tall and use those muscles and breathe. Okay, pushing a stroller. So this is my giant double stroller that weighs like 40 pounds. I don't advise women doing a lot of putting that in and out of a car until you're much further along. So which one of these photos looks the best? Yeah, so the one over here is the best. This one is kind of just, I'm leaning into it. And this is a really common one for moms. I think especially of like the moms pushing these heavier strollers, not like the little, although the strollers with the car seats in them can be actually pretty heavy. But it's common to do this kind of that gooseneck pushing when you're weak through your core, because you're just putting your body into it and making it go. But to put your body into it, you need to lean forward, and you get almost into a similar posture as that desk picture. Okay, so what it takes to stand up more straight, like I am over here, is core. Stand and hold yourself. So to push and get that momentum to just start, you need to, you should blow, exhale, to start that going. And when you exhale, you automatically, your core will respond by contracting a bit. And then if you're consciously trying to contract it, and the reason your core needs to engage is you need to have that stability through your body, your torso, to move forward without crumbling. So moms don't engage the core, they push, they don't have the automatic strength in their core, and they go, whoop, and then they stay there. Okay? So exhaling, I say blow before you go. It's a lot in that course. But exhaling, getting that core to help, and then going forward. Now the middle one demonstrates kind of the importance of something that you're pushing, like a stroller, a lot, to have an adjustable handlebar or be at a height that is good for you. So a good height is when shoulders relaxed, elbows at 90 degrees, and the handle's right there. So this handle's at a good height. It's pretty high. I'm 5'5". I'm not that tall, but a lot of strollers are more around this height. And the problem with this, well, one, it gets you crouching over more, and two, your wrists. So ideally, when we're holding things like car seats or strollers or even our babies, that we have is neutral of wrist. So neutral of wrist is when it's straight. So it can be straight this way, this way. So this is not neutral. This is extension and this is flexion. The more we're up in this extension, like I was trying to demonstrate, although you're probably saying like, oh, your wrist is still bent here. It is, and that's why it's not a great picture, but I can get it. I can push it like this. And I'm pushing the stroller through that part of my hand, keeping my fingers really loose, which keeps decreased tension in my wrist. And rather than it being up here, like it is when the handlebar is low. And then I'm pushing still through here, but this angle is so much more that things get more compressed. And with the looseness in your body as you're breastfeeding and or pregnant, it can create wrist issues, wrist pain. Okay, let's keep moving forward. All right, so holding and carrying, something we just do endlessly as moms. And with a 2 and a 4.5-year-old, it hasn't stopped. The one good thing is, babies start out small, and you can, especially with that first, you don't have any others you need to carry, and your strength will build as that baby gets bigger. Now, some babies weigh like 20, 25 pounds in a couple of months, so you never know. I was fortunate to have kind of smaller, lighter children. My 2-year-old only weighs about 25 pounds, but it's still hard. So recognizing and giving yourself grace and recognizing that, you will strengthen, you will feel stronger as a mom again. It just will take time and attention. It will happen faster if you're not just doing it during your exercise, but you're sprinkling it through your day. Am I holding myself up straight? So this one is that common like mama hip, and it's bound to happen. We're going to do it. The best thing I can give you is to try from the first week with your little one to try to keep it as 50-50. Try not to start with a super dominant side. It's always going to be more comfortable on one side. But your baby is also going to build a habit of that. So if for the first couple months when they're so little and tiny, it's easy to hold them for a long time. You only hold them on the right. At 6 months, when they start getting heavy and you try to move them to the left, they're going to be like, what are you doing? They're not going to like it. So you're starting to condition their behavior to support your health and your body as a mom. And I think there's nothing more important than that yes, you have to care for this little one, but you are an individual and you are a being too, whose health and well-being is just as important. So this common like hip tilt, to undo this, well, one, you can go 50-50. So it's kind of 50% over here and 50% over there. And actually that is not a bad strategy, but it's not building strength. So now I'm holding my 4.5-year-old, and this takes a lot of attention and focus for me to do. She's close to 40 pounds. I have to engage, so my hips tilted holding. So I have to engage my core, drop hip, super like we did the other day, pulling those hip bones together, standing up tall. And I'm always notice I have that kind of free hand where I'm holding her leg, but I kind of check in where are my hips doing. A common thing is to jut out to kind of let her have more of a hip bone to sit on. That's not good for your back, and it's shutting off your glutes. So you want to check that you're still holding the neutral hip space, and you're holding our, and it takes core engagement, like thinking of it, like you don't have to get on the floor and do core exercises as a mom. You just need to hold your children engaging your core, and it's more functional too. So you do that, God, no, I mean like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day, and you do it intentionally 50% of the time, you just did your core workout. You don't need to get on the floor. Okay, and this is just a side view. You can see how I have an over-exaggerated curve in my mid-back, and my head's doing that goose neck, and a big curve in my lower spine, my lumbar, and this is a lot more aligned. The curves aren't as exaggerated, so there's less pressure on those bones, joints, ligaments, muscles. These other lines are demonstrating this orientation between your hips and your ribs. Okay, so ideally, our hips and our ribs, let me just lower this, stay, second. Our hips and our ribs, that didn't work, should be parallel. So for this picture, you can see those lines are pretty parallel. So we're looking at like, how do I know if my hip's parallel? Well, like this line of your hip ridge and then your ribs are wrapping here. And so it's kind of that, what these lower ribs are doing. So right now my hips and my ribs are parallel. Now, if I am doing what I'm doing in that photo, these lines, my ribs are going down and my hips are going up. So they're not parallel. And I'm doing that to support a child more on this hip. Okay, but now I'm compressing. This compression with this heavy weight and probably not good core engagement is putting pressure down on my pelvic floor, potentially contributing to problems. No, opposite, this isn't common when you're holding, because we tend not to like arch when we hold, but you may, if you're trying to stand up tall holding your baby, you may go over past neutral, and now your hips, my hip point is going down, and my ribs are flaring up. Okay, and this is going to crunch your back. It's probably locking out your knees, which isn't good. And it's overstretching your abs. And again, it's still adding pressure down onto your pelvic floor in a way that it should not be receiving pressure. Okay, that's kind of a more advanced thing to tell. But if you can have some awareness of like, where are my ribs, where are my hips, it's great. Okay, car seat strategies. Car seats are so heavy, like so heavy, that ideally you delegate that task to some other stronger being in your world. But I also recommend moms, especially moms who are having active hip and back pain, to not remove the car seat from the car ever. That you simply carry the 10-pound baby to the car seat, put them in, and take them out. Now, it's not realistic for all moms to do that. You maybe are starting to walk and want them in the car seat with the stroller combo thing. And okay, so what should you do? The left side of your screen here is what you should not do, which is that leaning over, just carrying with a straight arm, like lugging a million pounds. I don't have all the drawings on here, but this one, a big part here is like a lot more weight is through one leg. And we're probably doing this on the same side of our body every day because that's a stronger arm. And we're lurching to one side. You can see in this picture that like lateral rounding of my spine is likely to fire up your low back. So alternatively, we want to pick up and hold just like you would pick up a big box. Like if you had a heavy box delivered to your door. Well, one, you're likely asking someone stronger to help move it. Also what you should do with the car seat, but they're not home. They're not going to be home for days. Okay, you have to pick it up. So you pick up that box. A lot of us have received body mechanic training through employment, and you're supposed to pick up and hold close to you. We want to do something similar to the car seat, but then it's really awkward to hold and walk. So I suggest these like kind of hook arm holds that where you're in this first picture here, I'm actually kind of, you can see my muscles engaging. I'm actually pulling that car seat into me and my body is pushing into the car seat. So it's kind of this like pressure hold. And it's a good bicep workout. And this one is if you have kind of sore wrists. So you can see this wrist here is really flexed. And for moms with some carpal tunnel or something, that could be really painful and flare up symptoms. So I suggest for them to do more of that hook hold on their elbow. And then just the crossing arm is just a stability arm. Okay, so it takes the wrist out of the equation there that may be really sore. bath time. So bath time evolves. Initially, bath time should really be done on a table with like the little, the little infant bathtub and on a tabletop with a towel. That's ideal. But eventually they get too big for that or too messy for that. Water going everywhere, and you need to go to the bath. So this is the lazy mom way. Just bend over and watch this kid as fast as I can, right? Try not to. This is really bad and very easy to pull a muscle. This is an improvement. For many moms, this works just fine. Kind of depends on your knees. A lot of moms will have like that pad, that knee pad by their bathtub, and you're leaning over it and helping your child. I do this a lot, but it does hurt my knees, and I'm standing up and I'm like, oh my God, ouch. So if your body's telling you that, it's not great. So what's a better solution is potentially this idea of sitting on some sort of stool. Now the challenge here is you need to have some flexibility. So my legs are very spread out. Some women can't do that enough to get close enough to safely bathe their baby. So the middle option is better. But this way, what I was trying to demonstrate with this is that I still am preserving the natural curves of my spine. I'm up on my sit bones. No, it's not straight up. It's just at this tilted angle. But this is going to be a lot better. And you're getting some nice stretching while you're at it. This actually feels, this is the way I prefer to do it, because you get that night, I get like a stretch and I'm like, oh, this feels so good. And it's actually very releasing to my low back. All right, I know we don't have too much more time. I think we're doing okay. The last few slides are pretty quick, but this is breastfeeding. I am holding my Kirsten doll because I don't have an infant. This is the common, what I see, just this very loungy breastfeeding. It's fine. I'm not going to say don't ever do this. I am going to encourage that it not be the only way you breastfeed, that you try lots of different positions and early on. Again, just like that holding on the left and right, the earlier you're having your baby breastfeed in different positions, the more adaptable they're going to be to breastfeeding in different positions, and the more able you're going to be able to successfully breastfeed for your body where you need to. So kind of an overarching ergonomic thing with breastfeeding is to not form to the baby, but have the baby form to you. They are little gummy piles of lovely mush, and they will go wherever you need and be in these crazy positions that you're like, oh my God, they're probably dying. They're not. They were just curled up in a ball inside you. They love those weird, awkward positions, and they're fine, and they're going to squawk and cry if they're not. So if they seem comfortable and calm, even though it looks so bizarre, they're fine. I want you're the one who's going to have those aches and pains, to have the baby form to what you need, your posture, so that I can kind of, this one I know like so not realistic here, but what I'm trying to demonstrate here, okay, so some changes I did is this: I just sat in the bed, okay, and just have the breastfeeding pillow and baby on boob. This one I have added a pillow behind me, a more supportive pillow. So I have 3 pillows behind me, and I'm sitting with my hips elevated above my knees. This is key. When your hips are above your knees, you can better attain those natural curves in your spine. When you're sitting with your knees higher than your hips, it just rounds out your low back and you can't have those nice curves. So elevating your hips up is a great fix. And then my super awkward face here, but moms often and very early breastfeeding, I know I did it, like my first 2 weeks with my first, like just looked at my baby the whole time she breastfed. And then I would look up and be like, oh my God. So I try to remind moms to like, try to look forward or up or reverse. So if I'm looking down here, okay, baby latched and seems okay for a moment. So look up the opposite way, or look straight ahead, or look up to the ceiling, like just reversing that motion And then, oh, she unlatched. Okay, look back down and then look up. It's going to save your neck from so much and your shoulders from so much tightness. A great alternative, because this picture is just not realistic at nighttime, is I love side lying breastfeeding. It can look a lot of different ways. The key thing is that your head and neck are supported. Like I Googled side lying breastfeeding positions, and they show these moms like resting up on their elbows like this. And I'm like, what mom can do that for 15 minutes or more? Like just not realistic. And so we need a pillow to support our head. And it does allow for a much nicer supported thing. And popping a pillow between your legs is great for your hips. And you've done that. A lot of moms are doing that through pregnancy. And I encourage you to continue through those, especially those early weeks postpartum. Okay, we're almost at that. Okay, baby carrying. I think this is the last ergonomic picture. The key points I want to make here, because I could do a whole hour on baby carrying, is one, to find the right carrier. And there's so many, so that can be hard. I actually keep kind of a store of different baby carriers for moms to try out and then purchase. So feel free to contact me if that's something that interests you. Excuse me. But a key thing is once you get that baby carrier on, no matter if it's one of those big boba wraps or this is a Lily baby, I like the Lily baby because that back support reminder is that you get it as snug as you can. I think you want the main support to be right at that hip crest, your hip bones are, and so really at your natural waist, and you're snugging it in really tight. What I see often is moms wearing it much looser and lower on their hips. Depending on the size of the child, sometimes you do have to lower it. I understand, or you can't even see where you're going, or the size of the mom. But once you get it on nice and snug, the key is that you're not, and I mentioned this earlier, bulging your abs, so the baby carrier's here, maybe, and you're bulging out your stomach to get support. Okay, so you want that strap to be snug against your stomach and helping remind you, almost like a corset, to hold yourself in. Now you don't have to hold yourself in super firmly, but you don't want to be pushing your core out against that baby carrier. And as always, checking your hip alignment, that pubic bone and stick-outy bone. That pushing out, you can be doing it without even knowing it until someone asks you, are you doing this? It can save you from getting, almost all of us will have a diastasis postpartum, but most of them will heal, no problem. But if you're doing something like bulging against your baby carrier, it's less likely to heal on its own. Okay, so some key takeaways here. Slow before you go, before you pick up that car seat, before you push that stroller, before you pick up that child, exhale. Prep your core to help you out. Pull the hip bones together. I talked about that a little today. I did more details. So if you missed the Tuesday, listen to the recording. I go into the exercise of activating your natural deep core transverse abdominis, and it's by pulling your hip bones together. It's another, so okay, I blew, okay, now I'm standing up tall, okay, let me try to pull those hip bones together, and now you're activating that deep core. Check for neutral hip alignment. We've talked about that over and over, and the natural curve. So all of that reduces your risk of injury. Remembering to breathe, tuning into your body daily, and taking time for yourself to unwind. So real quick slide here is these are kind of really great unwinding postures. They're restorative yoga or yin yoga type postures. So that's a great thing to do really early on postpartum. 4, 5, 6 weeks is just go to a very gentle restorative yoga class. I think in person is better, so you can tell the teacher that you are very early postpartum, and they can make sure they're not, aware of that and making sure you're well supported. Or just doing some simple versions. This is just, my desk chair, a blanket, a yoga block, a towel and an eye pillow, and it feels like heaven. It opens our chest up. It gets us going in more of this extension, but very gently. And I use this word a lot today, giving yourself grace. So I talked about all these things that you could do perfectly. I hope you take away from today that if you do that even a little bit, you're doing so much better than so many other moms. Like you're doing yourself a huge service by even doing it a couple times a day, tuning in, like, am I engaging my core? Once a day is great. Like anything is better than nothing. So not beating yourself up with like, oh, I didn't do that enough today. It's okay. It's motherhood. So, and reminding yourself to laugh. We all need more laughter. Great for everything. So, oh my God, on the dot, like 8 a.m. So thank you so much. I hope, please let us know if you have any questions. And it's been such a pleasure to be part of this and offer this information to moms that often gets just overlooked.
Aw, thank you so much, Hillary. That was amazing. All great things to keep in mind. Even now, that like taught me a whole lot. So thank you.
Yeah, what I'll do, I can actually send my slide to Kirsten I didn't do it on Tuesday, from Tuesday and today, and she can share them, especially today's because there's so many photos.
Yeah, that would be really great. I know I've had people too asking, because some people joined later, if they can get the recordings, and those are going to be sent tomorrow after the whole entire retreat is complete. So don't worry, they are coming. And then I'll send awesome things like these slides in those emails as well. So stay tuned for that. Tomorrow is our course wrap up. It's the last day, but it's still going to be packed with a lot of information. We're going to go over breastfeeding basics, as well as some other mental health practices, and then talking about important things like preparing your home, preparing your partner, and just preparing yourself for postpartum. So it's going to be another awesome day. So we'll see all of you back here tomorrow at 7 a.m. Thanks so much.
Aloha, thank you.